Hello everyone, today I'm here with Zen Takahashi. You might not necessarily know him because, obviously people who like went to a bunch of PTs and stuff know him because you're awesome, you're smart, and you played a bunch of PTs, but you never had like a breakout event or like a pro tour or whatever. I think you have like 5 Grand Prix topics or something like that. But I really wanted to talk to you, and I just thought that if I don't use this interview as an excuse to talk to you, you wouldn't. So here we are, I guess. How it's going?
Yes. Sorry, because I actually saw that you messaged me for an interview like months ago, but it sort of got buried in my inbox. And
yeah, that's a good excuse, right? If there is like no scene, then you can just like pretend that you never saw it. So you can just go with that.
Exactly. You just see the preview message, and I intentionally ignored it at the time.
Anyway, I thought that what happened is that I just like made a bunch of them, and then you were like, "Oh, fine, I will do it." But at the beginning you were like, "Fuck you, Petr." That's like that's my perspective on it. But maybe you just really didn't see it. But anyway, here we are. So let's go, I guess. I was like thinking that maybe you would add something to it, but you're just not saying anything, so I'm like not sure if the connection is coming through.
And I heard you. No, I didn't really have much input in that. I probably, when I first saw the message, I don't know when you sent it, but I probably just was like, "Oh no, whatever," and ignored it.
Yeah.
And I just completely forgot about it. Yeah.
All right.
I just forgot you even asked. So.
Okay, before we go to Magic, let's talk about other stuff as well. This is going to be interesting for me because I want to get to know about you a little bit better as well. We used to be like a part of the same team, MTG Mincard, but I think that's like 3 years ago now. So a lot of things have changed. You said you started doing hiking. Was that maybe because because of Corona, there are not that many like activities that you could like do with people before, so you like have to find new ones, or like why did you start doing that?
It was mostly that. So I was actually living in Edinburgh until March last year, and I came back for a friend's wedding. And then COVID that happened. So we ended up I ended up being stuck in New Zealand, and I couldn't go back to the UK. And then my partner joined me, and because her uni also got cancelled, so she came over to New Zealand. And I think we went through like a few months of lockdown here. During that time, we could still go outside for like a walk each day, so we sort of regularly did that and got a bit into hiking. By the time we came out of lockdown and stuff, the weather was really good, and we could like travel freely, so we just took the opportunity to like around New Zealand a bit and do some hikes and do some traveling around.
You said you had to come back because of Corona. If you could, would you prefer to like live in England, but you just kind of have to be in New Zealand because of the situation, or what do you think about that?
It's a hard one. I think if there was no Corona at all, I would definitely prefer to be back there. But things were so bad in the UK. As in New Zealand, we pretty much we've had like no cases. Like our life's pretty much back to normal. It's like mid last year. So definitely, if you compare those two, I'd definitely much rather be here. Yeah.
So New Zealand is completely fine right now. You'll have like everything is open and things are just going like normally they would, or do you still have some restrictions?
The only restriction we pretty much have is we can't really leave the country. Like rather, if we do, it's really hard to get back in. But yeah, I mean, I think last week we had a concert with 50,000 people, so. Like really
maybe I should go to New Zealand. If I'm from like a country, like for example, I'm from Czech Republic. I think we're the worst in Europe. I'm not like surprised. Can I like can I fly there right now or no? If I wanted to.
So we're only letting citizens and residents back in, or if you're from Australia. And even from Australia, only started about 2 weeks ago.
I see.
We were really strict.
So I assume that there are like not that many flights actually going there, right? If it's only like citizens, it's only basically people who are returning to the country. How does that like work out? Because I assume that most companies don't really want to like have flights if there are no people on it, right? Do you know anything about that?
Yes. So our government basically organized special flights that was essentially because we have so many Kiwis like living in Europe, especially the UK. Obviously, like you sort of mentioned, like none of the companies wanted to fly the route because there's not many people. So the government kind of like organized these special flights just to basically pick up New Zealanders all over the world and bring them home.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned the fact that you have a new job, right? Maybe you already had that job when I last met you. I'm not sure, but I remember that you were doing some work with like the cryptocurrencies and stuff. But now you're doing something different, right? Am I understanding incorrectly?
Yeah, no, that's actually right. Yeah, so I was living in Edinburgh. Prior to moving there, I was working for like a cryptocurrency exchange that was based in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
But then after I came back here, I sort of wanted to find different work. And one of the really good things that has sort of happened in New Zealand over the past few years is that our startup scene has really expanded. So we have a lot of like tech startups. The government's been really expanding on that. So I work for sort of this like boutique accounting firm. We specialize in helping sort of startups expand to other countries and helping them with tax compliance in different jurisdictions and things like that. It's been really interesting. We've had a lot of like interested investors from the US just because things here have been really, really good. So yeah, a lot of people from around the world sort of want to invest in New Zealand companies.
Mm-hmm. I a little bit mentioned the cryptocurrency thing. I think most people watching this are probably interested in hearing more of that because everyone is talking about it right now. There's just like not only Bitcoin, but there's like infinite other currencies that people are like thinking that maybe they will make a lot of money on it if it just like spikes. Do you like know anything about it, or were you just like working there but you actually like have no idea? I assume that you don't because otherwise you would be a millionaire, but I'm just curious to find out.
I'm definitely not that knowledgeable on it. One of the things though that I think is quite interesting is I think where cryptocurrencies is now is sort of like the early days of the internet. So this is sort of in the early 2000s where technology is going to be revolutionary and it's going to change the world. It's not going to do it as quickly as people think and not in the way that people think. So like all these things right now, like these non-fungible tokens and all these weird cryptocurrencies, like most of them are worthless. And that was sort of like in the early 2000s when we had the year 2000 .com bubble where there was so many internet companies and pretty much all of them were worthless. It was just a little bit too early. Like most of us aren't knowledgeable enough right now to know what's good and what's not, but will definitely change the world, but it will take time.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably won't look like the way we look at it right now, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with it. How much time do you think it's going to actually take when we get to a point where it's going to be like the more commonly used way to like pay for something rather than just like using the actual money? Do you think it's like maybe 15 years, 20 years? Like, what do you think?
It's really hard to know. I think the really, really big thing is for us, like, you living in Czech and for me, like living in New Zealand, we have really good banking infrastructure already. So it's really hard for us to realize, but in third world countries, like so many people don't have bank accounts, but they do have a phone. And I suspect we're already seeing like sort of cryptocurrency payments do really well in Africa. And China's about to come out with its own digital currency. And so I'm not sure what it'll look like yet, but I suspect it'll actually benefit the third world countries before it hits the first world countries. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Oh, that's interesting. No one like when you said it, it's like so obvious, but like no, I never heard it before, so I just wouldn't even think of that. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's why I love to talk to you. You just like you just make other people better people.
What's actually funny is I bought some Chinese cards from Hao Shanhuang, who is a former gold pro from Taiwan, and we're trying to figure out how to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
PayPal fees are really high, so I figured out the best way for me to pay him is just with crypto. But what was funny is that meme coin that everyone always talks about, Dogecoin, the one with the dog as a
yeah.
That one actually had the lowest transaction fee. So
I love where this is going.
I paid Harshan like 1,200 Dogecoin or something, just so I could buy some Chinese War Supply shares.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let's get into Magic a little bit. You have 5 GP top 8, which is like a bunch of top 8s, but I think what's like important for people to realize that you're originally from New Zealand, and there are just like not that many GPs around. So like you maybe have like 1 GP in Australia a year. I don't know if you like flew to any other GPs. Maybe you played like a GP in front of a Pro Tour if you went to States or something. But overall, I assume that you played way less GPs than, for example, I did. So having 5 is actually super impressive, I think. Did you maybe like top 8 free GPs in like every single year in the Australian GP, or like how did you accumulate so many GP top 8s?
So I think basically Australia gets 2 GPs a year.
Oh, it's still okay.
So I think over a 6-year period we had like 12, and then I top 8'd 5 of them. So like sort of 1 a year. That being said, though, I do think the like caveat with Australian GPs is they're just a lot softer. They're just like no pros.
Mm-hmm.
At least very, very few.
How about the amount of people playing in them?
So usually they're about 1,000.
Oh, okay.
I think the only big one was the one where it was a week before Pro Tour Sydney. Yeah, other than that, and I think that was like 1,300. But yeah, usually they're like about 1,000 people, so they're quite small. I always say that's probably more comparable to top 8ing like a SCG Open more than like a European or American Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm. But still, you top 8'd 5 of them. That's like super impressive. Like, how do you actually look at it? Do you look at it more like, well, it's kind of unfortunate where I was born, so it's like almost impossible for me to become a pro, or was it more like, well, I'm actually kind of lucky because where I live the competition isn't as high, and it's like easier for me to actually qualify? Did you ever thought of that?
Actually, interestingly, I kind of see it differently. Like, I actually think of it more like because of where I lived, going to a Pro Tour felt really, really special. Like every Pro Tour I went to, it was like at its quickest, it's like the US, it's like 20 hours away. And if it's Europe, it's like 30 or 40 hours away. So it always felt like a big trip to me. So I thought it was a pretty special experience because for me, it felt like a really, really big deal. I remember I was talking to Ben Jones about it ages ago. Because I think he'd played like a few Pro Tours as well, but all his Pro Tours were in the US. For him, it was just like traveling within the country. And it just didn't feel as special. I feel like I felt like I got more of a special experience out of it. I like that I lived quite far away.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever consider or thought about the fact to just like become an actual pro? I think you only reached like silver. You were never gold, right?
Yeah, no, I was only ever silver. I think it never really occurred to me. To be honest, when I got to the Pro Tour, I realized sort of like how much worse I was compared to the people that were actually pros. I think one of the things that people don't understand is that even on the Pro Tour, the gap between like the platinum golds versus the rest of the field is massive. Mm-hmm. I was very much way closer to the latter group than I was to the pros. So to be honest, once I made it to Pro Tour, I realized, okay, I'm never gonna become a pro.
But I don't think it's because you're like not smart enough or whatever. You just like didn't want to put in the work, or because like you definitely, if you really wanted to, you could become that good. Maybe not for like a long period of time, because that would just be very time consuming. But I think that if you decided for like 1 year to like really play like 8 hours a day, maybe you would have a pretty good shot. Like it was never really something that you wanted, or you just thought that you don't have the skills necessary for that, or.
I think I just didn't have the necessary skills. Obviously, I didn't put in that much effort because I sort of treat it more as like a holiday. But I think that even if I put in a lot of effort, like my technical play has never been good and still isn't very good. I think that I did well at the GP level because I just turned up with better decks and had better knowledge on the formats. But to do well at the PT level, you just have to have like pretty raw like level of talent that I don't think I just had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, like during the testing, you always just like, you are never really playing. I just think that like if you just like sit in front of the table and just like played way more, maybe you would like get there. But I think you kind of like convince yourself that it doesn't really matter and you're like not good enough, so it just like doesn't really matter. But I just don't think it's true. Like I don't know. I just think you're pretty good. That if you like tried a little bit more, you would maybe get there. But I don't know.
I agree that like I think especially towards the end, like because my first few PT results were actually pretty decent. Like I cashed most of my first few PTs, and then once I started working full time, it just like fell off a cliff, and I was just like, I'd come home from work and I was just way too tired to any effort. So then by the time I like got on the plane to get to the testing house, like I was already in this quite heated mentality. Like I didn't really expect to do well. Remember when we were testing for Proto Dominaria, we got to the testing house and then Javier played a Teferi, like 5-mana Teferi, and used its middle ability, and I didn't know that you had to put it third from the top. So I just put Hazard right on top, and it was like 3 days before the PT, and I didn't know what one of the best methods. So
how did that PT went for you?
Well, I went 1-5.
Oh, nice. That's unfortunate. You had some pretty good success on a Pro Tour though. I think you were like part of the team who created the dredge deck that Rishitian competed with, right?
Yeah, so the dredge deck in Modern was something that right after Shadows over Innistrad came out, Rishitian thought it had potential. So it was something that I worked on with him because there was a WMCQ coming up. And ended up winning our local WMCQ, and nobody had Graveyard Hate. Like Dredge was just a completely unknown deck at the time. It wasn't even on Moto and stuff. And then I wrote an article about it on Minka that did really well, and then from there it sort of became an established deck. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why, but I kind of have you as like a Dredge guy. Why is that? Did you maybe post about it a lot, or did you do well with it yourself? Like for some reason, if I think of Zen Takahashi and like a Magic deck, it's going to be a Dredge deck. Why is that?
I came second at a GP with it.
Oh, that's why.
I won like a WMCQ and a RPDQ with it, so I did pretty well with it. But I think it was mostly just I wrote a bunch of articles about it, so. At the time, it was like I was the only person writing about the deck, so yeah.
I see. So on Facebook, you know, I always message people to like give me a little bit more info before the interview, so I can ask better. And you like gave me some pretty good stories. The one that catch my eye the most was the fact that to be able to skip school, you like photoshopped like a flight ticket to PT or whatever, so that you know you can just like show them, well, I'm gonna be away. Is that like a real story?
Yeah. So so I won a Magic Online RPDQ, and Magic Online RPDQ, instead of giving you a flight, they give you $1,500, and then you have to pay for your own flight. And Pro Tour clashed with my final uni exam, and so I basically went to the uni, and then they were like, I was like, well, I get it moved, and then they were like, no, you can't. And then I said, well, I'm representing New Zealand, which isn't really true, but you know, it is what it is. And then they were like, well, can they replace you? I said, well, no, because they've already paid and booked my flights. So then they were like, all right, well, you have to prove all of this. So a friend photoshopped jersey for me with the New Zealand flag on it and my name on the back, and we claimed that this was the uniform I was going to wear. And then I grabbed one of my old Expedia flight itineraries, and we just basically recreated a fake flight itinerary for a flight that actually existed. It made it look like I already bought the tickets, even though I hadn't yet, because there's no way I wanted to book a flight before I knew whether I could go.
Yeah.
And I submitted it all. They said they'll get back to me in like 2 weeks. But then 2 weeks passed and I still didn't hear back, and then I started shitting myself, and I was like, oh fuck, the uni found out, and I maybe I get kicked out or something. But then a week later they were like, yeah, it's all good. And then I ended up booking my flight like just like right before, and then ended up going to the PT, yeah. And I came back, and then I got back from the US back to New Zealand at 6 a.m. and then my exam was at 10 a.m. So I went straight from the airport to the uni with all my bags and stuff.
I would never thought of you as like a guy who would do a scam like this, but maybe I just have like a wrong opinion about who you are. I don't know. Maybe it was just the only option to do, but I don't know. When I read that, I was just like very surprised that you would do something like that. In a good way, though. In a good way.
I think in terms of like, obviously I don't want to like, I'm not here to like have my morals judged or anything, but generally my rule of thumb is if it will hurt anybody else, then don't do it. But if it doesn't hurt anybody else and it's just a free roll, then just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but that all being said, there are like a lot of the people just wouldn't even like, consider that as an option or whatever. So I don't know. I see you in a different light right now, is all I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
Okay, you mentioned the fact that you queued for this tournament with an RPTQ. I think you won like 3 RPTQs in a row on Magic Online. So you're like making all these statements that like the gap between you and like gold pros is like huge and you could never reach that or whatever. But you just like top 8 every single GP in Australia and you like won 3 RPTQs in a row. So I'm just like a little bit doubtful about all of that. It wasn't maybe because you just like had insane decks from like the MTG min card. I think you even had like the winning deck of world champion Javier Dominguez like for one of the RPTQs. I'm just a little bit surprised that he let you play with the deck that he's gonna play at Worlds. Like you played that deck before the actual Worlds, right?
Yeah. So all 3 Moto RPTQ, all 3 of the RPTQs I won were all on Magic Online because in New Zealand we didn't get any RPTQs, so I'd have to fly to Australia, which is like $400 flight. So
really?
I was never gonna do that. It's like it's usually like
it's so expensive. I like
$350 US.
Maybe it's just because it's like skewed on the map, but I always thought that it was just like right behind the corner, and you can just.
No, it's quite far. It's like a 4 or 5 hour flight. So,
I see.
Yeah, it's not that close.
I see. I always kind of assume that you can just go on a boat and just like kind of get there like this, but it's probably not how it is.
So I only ever played the Moto RPTQs, and they were all like always about 2 weeks after the Pro Tour happened. I think that, or at least quite close to it, and I think that I was quite lucky in the sense that every time I like bombed out of a PT, I proclaimed that was my last PT ever. Classic. Then Engu or Javier will be like, well, no, you got your RPTQ in 2 weeks time, and they'll basically just like force me to prepare for it, or even just like prepare for it for me. Like I remember one of my RPTQ wins was with zombies and standard, and basically like I still had a silver invite, but I was like, oh yeah, I don't care about the PT, and then like Calc for no reason just jammed a bunch of zombie leagues for me and basically gave me a list and a sideboard guide and was like, here, play it, I've been working on this for you. And then the other instance is like, yeah, there was an RPTQ a week before the World Championships, and Javier basically was like, well, I want you to get back on the PT, so here's a red black list that I'm going to play at Worlds with a full sideboard guide.
Was the deck list, the deck list got posted, right? Like when you won the PTQ, everyone had access to that deck list potentially, right?
Yeah, so it was an 8-round RPTQ, and I actually started 7-0, so I was locked top 8 for like the invite before the last round, and then I just scooped the last round so it'll get less attention, because otherwise I would have been in first place. But yeah, if anyone wanted to see 74 to 75 that Javier won Worlds with, they could have seen it a week before under Planeswalker Zen.
What was the card that he played different? You said 74 out of 75, so.
I think he changed like a Soul Sky Mage for a Magma Spray or something.
Oh, I see.
I think the big difference with that list from all the other red-black lists at the time was that he didn't play Unlicensed Disintegration. Instead played 2 main deck Doomfalls.
Oh, was that maybe because of like the blue-black matchup, or why was that so good? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the blue-black matchup for Scarab God, yeah.
I see. Are you playing any Magic right now? Like from what you're saying, it seems like you're kind of busy with other things and you're just like not playing at all. But maybe I'm wrong. Are you like maybe playing the Arena qualifiers, or are you just like off it?
I've actually never played Arena.
Oh really? 0 times.
I didn't even have an account.
Oh.
'Cause I use a Mac, and so it took ages to come out, and then by the time it came out, I just had no interest. But I play like legacy events sort of weekly in Auckland, and I organize like this like league that happens, but it's all pretty casual. And I haven't played any non-legacy Magic in
I
a
see.
year and a half or something.
That's kind of sad. What's going on with Legacy right now? I heard that it's not what it used to be. I heard that like 50% of the cards have been printed in like the last 3 years or something. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, the recent sets have definitely made like a really high impact. I mean, a lot of them got banned, like Astrolabe, Arco, and Dreadhorde Arcanist, but even then, like Euro's still running around, and Strixhaven's been a pretty high impact format because there's a new combo deck with Chain of Smog.
I don't actually even know that. Can you maybe talk about it a little bit? The new combo deck?
Yeah, so like all the Magecraft cards basically say whenever you cast or copy a spell, you get the ability. And then there's a card from Odyssey called Chain of Smog, where it's 2 mana, like target player discards 2 cards. Then they can copy it, so you can copy it basically infinite times. And like with the Magecraft cards, you'll get infinite triggers, and one of them, the green-black 2/2, basically says whenever you trigger Magecraft, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So you're basically a 2-card combo.
I see. That's pretty cool. All right, that's gonna be all for today. Before we wrap it up, maybe you want to tell people where they can find you on internet. Maybe you have like a Twitter or something. So if you want to share that.
Yeah, just on Twitter under MTG Zen. I don't really post that much, and then that's sort of the only like public social media I have.
All right, I think you liked a little bit. Can you like say the name again of the Twitter?
It's MTG Zen.
Oh, okay.
So MTG and then ZEN.
Cool. If you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Zen, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.